You are digging a grave for the individual in whom you love.
Retro.
If I ask you a very potent question right now, and I ask you to raise your hand, I may find you raising your hand. Because if I ask you, have you ever shot somebody? You probably say, Jaja, no. Have you ever committed murder? You'd probably say, Jaja, no. And then I tell you specifically that you're on the verge of committing your first crime. You may ask me, what am I talking about? Stop killing those people around you in whom you love. Start being honest. Start telling the truth. The bread of deceit is sweet to a man. But afterwards, his mouth is filled with gravel. Ladies and gentlemen, the bread of deceit is sweet to a man, but afterwards his mouth is filled with gravel. What does the word gravel stem from? It's a French word for gravel, another word for sand. And the word gravel comes from the word grave. The bread of deceit is sweet to a man, but afterwards, his mouth is filled with grave. In other words, when we continue to lie and allow ourselves to be dishonest to those in whom we love, because today we don't want to hurt them today, because it's sweet to give them the bread of deceit today, we fail to see what is going to happen to them in the future. I'm not talking about criticizing somebody's career, somebody's decisions and goals for their life. I'm talking about the intrinsic things that you know God has put in your heart to tell this individual that is corrupting them. Whether it may be substance abuse, whether it may be addictions, whether it may be things that are continuing to hinder them day after day after day. And you know in your spirit, the discernment has been put in your spirit and not theirs, because God gave you the discernment, that real food to give to this individual, but you continue to harbor that food for yourself, selfishness, and give the bread, the sweet bread of deceit, to the individual in whom you love. You are digging a grave for the individual in whom you love. Many years ago, I had a close friend. And this is back in high school. That was my boy. Ha ha. We had this bond. This bond that the word talks about as having a friend closer than a brother. We all have those friends that are closer than family. They feel like they were born right next to us. And I had that individual of my life. But here's where it got sticky, ladies and gentlemen, as we began to grow up, our views and our perspectives and ideologies of this world began to separate. And even though this is a normality of life, the separation that I seen for my boy was a destructive one. But back then, I didn't have the confidence that God was telling me to have to speak up on this person's behalf. Like, yo, Jaja, just tell your boy something. Yo, Jaja, just give him some instructions. Yo, Jaja, just stop feeding him the bread, the sweet bread of deceit for one day. Stop egging on the poor decisions. So back then I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to ask God, why me? Why do I have to be the one, the individual, to break it clean? I didn't want to take that responsibility because I figured somebody else would do it. And many times we don't realize that it's us, it's me, it's you that are feeding individuals the bread of deceit. Because we want to be too comfortable. We want to be too cozy. We don't want to stir anything up because we don't feel like the other person has thick skin. It's not that the other person doesn't have thick skin. It's that you don't have thick skin. I didn't have thick skin. So what am I going to do? Because I want to feel comfortable. It's a selfish thing. I want to feel at peace. I want to feel right today. I don't want to go through turbulence. I want to take that flight, but I don't want to go through turbulence. So yeah, I'll continue to feed you that bread of deceit because it's sweet. Now the contrary is, now that you're feeding the other individual the sweet bread of deceit, you sow what you reap. What you're doing for yourself, you're also feeding yourself the bread of deceit. So afterwards, the mouth is filled with gravel. You're not digging the other person's grave alone. You're also digging your own. You sow what you reap. Now, when I ask you a question of have you shot anybody, and you say, yo, Jaja, no. Have you committed murder? You put your hand up. You say, Jaja, no. And then we go back to this verse, and I look around you, and I see that you're digging your own grave right now. You're digging somebody else's grave right now because you fail to be as confident as you need to be to speak up on your behalf. You must speak up on your behalf. You must speak up on their behalf. And even if it's to only plant a seed, you must speak up. My leadership challenge for you today is to throw away the bread of deceit and start being more honest. And the first way to start doing this, ladies and gentlemen, is to be more honest with yourself. I love candy too. I would love to eat all the candy that God could possibly give me. But I would be foolish to understand that if I continue to eat candy in the way in which I'm eating candy, eventually I'm going to get a toothache. Eventually I'm going to need a root canal. Eventually I'm going to get cavities. Eventually, if you continue to feed the sweet bread of deceit to your friends and your family, which is the same as feeding them candy, eventually you're going to dig them to that grave. Eventually, you're going to allow them to develop these cavities. Eventually, you're going to be taking them to that hospital for that root canal. Eventually, you're going to be picking them up because there's no more opportunities for them. Eventually, you're going to watch that individual become hurt. Eventually, you're going to sit here watching that individual become depressed. Eventually, you're going to be taking that person out of trouble, out of jail, out of a sticky situation. Because you fail to negate what God is telling you. Stop sugarcoating everything and be honest. My leaders, I'm talking to you right now. The bread of deceit is sweet to a man. But afterwards, what is afterwards? After the smoke is cleared, right? After the person comes to realize it within himself, he'll realize the gravel that's in his mouth. And it's better for you to speak up right now than for somebody to find out years later and realize that you had been lying to them your entire life. You had been lying to them their entire life. It's better for you to speak up. So now what do, ladies and gentlemen? I speak up on things. And what does that do? Speaking up is not sweet. A lot of times it's bitter. It's not taken too well. And that's to be expected. But you must speak up. Because what it's going to do is going to build your relationships. And if you won't lie to yourself, the less you lie to yourself, the less likely you are to lie to other individuals. And the more you start telling truth to other individuals, and the more you stop feeding individuals the sweet bread of deceit, you're slowly but surely helping them get away from committing murder. And when I ask you, have you shot anybody? I'll believe you when you raise your hand. We are
foolish, you gotta leave. Cause you living, but you not growing. And so you mad because you still in the same place, Jaja. You mad cause you in the same place. I told you forsake the foolish. So You don't wanna be obedient, right? Alright, keep living. I'ma keep blessing you, but keep living. So I skip